there. I am Kimberly Hayes-Muga.
And I'm Amanda Day.
And you are listening to the Fundraising HayDay podcast,
where we cover the how-tos of grants and fundraising.
And how we can all do a better job of changing the world through philanthropy.
And Patreon subscribers can get these episodes early. Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for joining the podcast. Before we share today's incredible interview with you, I want to remind folks that Kimberly and I are bringing all that we've learned in a shared 50-plus year grant career, along with nearly 150 podcast episodes, to our 8-week intensive grants training known as the Grants Lab. If you're new to grants, or maybe if you've tried your hand at grants but aren't getting the results you want, or maybe your organization is new to grant seeking, the Grants Lab really is made for you. We offer over 14 hours of instruction spread out over 8 weeks, and we provide feedback on a previously denied grant proposal of your choosing, plus weekly writing assignments that leave you with a grant template for one of your organization's programs. If the Grants Lab sounds right for you, you want to visit our website at haydayservices.com. That's HAYDAY services.com to find out the date of our next cohort, to learn more about other services offered, and to join our wait list if you want to stay abreast of all the Grant Lab news.
Also, y'all, from the shameless plug category department of Fundraising HayDay,
what you got?
This is the first episode of season 8. Season 8. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. So
either. I mean, it's in some ways it seems like so long ago that we sat at Ted's Montana Grill and dreamed up this idea, but in other ways it seems like it was just yesterday too.
Also, Ted's Montana Grill, call us. We're open to sponsorships. I'm just saying.
Absolutely. So we wanted to kick off season 8 with a universal topic, something that we can all learn from: the challenges of communication. As someone who lives with a guy and a teenager and a 20-year-old who thinks he's an adult but really is still a teenager.
Oh, no bitterness here. No bitterness.
Communication is so important just in life in general, at work, in podcasting, in grant work, right? Everywhere. So who better to speak on this subject than Michelle Gladieux? Michelle is an executive coach, instructional designer, teacher, and speaker, deeply committed to helping people overcome obstacles and fears as communicators. She earned her MS in industrial technology with an emphasis in organizational psychology at Purdue University, and she has designed and presented over 1,000 original seminars. Her book, Communicate with Courage, distributed worldwide by Penguin Random House, earned 11 literary awards in its first year of publication. We were fortunate to see her as the keynote speaker at the Grant Summit hosted by the Grant Professionals Association, and we were lucky to be able to interview her for our podcast also at Grant Summit. So it was during a bustling exhibit hall, so there's going to be some background noise, but you can still hear Michelle. So we hope you enjoyed this interview as much as we did.
So listen, y'all, we are thrilled to have Kim Joyce and Associates returning as the season 8 sponsor for the first half of our season 8, which is crazy. CEO Kim Joyce and her team are celebrating 15 years of success with new service lines, all while expanding the depth and the breadth of their existing services. Kim is joining us to talk about trends in the field and more, with a mini series that you'll hear at the beginning of each of the 12 episodes that Kim Joyce and Associates are sponsoring this season. So y'all, we are super thrilled to have Kim Joyce and Associates back again as a sponsor for season 8 of the Fundraising HayDay podcast. They'll be sponsoring for the first half of our podcast season. So we're thrilled. And Kim, I understand that there's an important milestone that Kim Joyce and Associates will be celebrating this year. So tell us more.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say congratulations on your 8th season. It's so exciting. And we are moving into our 15-year anniversary as a company. Yep. We started in 2010, so 2015 will be our 15th year.
Wow.
So I'm thinking, going out on a limb here, first of all, congratulations again. But I'm
Thank you.
thinking you have seen all kinds of changes in the grant industry over the past decade and a half, right? Is there something that sort of stands out as maybe that you could point to one of the biggest changes in the grant industry? What would that be?
Well, I remember the days when we would print all of our grant applications out, the application, the narrative, all the attachments, and, put them around a big board table and assemble all the packages and put them together. So that's something that is a fond memory, but a big change, a big change. The introduction of AI is a big change and kind of navigating those challenges and how do we deal with this and what do we do about this and just watching all of that.
Mhm.
And then the online portals, that's definitely another change. So moving from paper to online, but they're all different and navigating those. So those are three that I can think of.
To find out more about Kim Joyce and Associates and their many incredible service lines, visit kimjoyceandassociates.com. They are a one-stop shop for all your grant-related needs.
All right. So, Michelle Gladieux, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yes.
We've got a lot to talk about. There's so many fascinating things that you address in your book. And by the time people are hearing this, you will have already given your keynote at the Grant Summit powered by Grant Professionals Association in November 2024, right? So I'm setting the stage. Also, for people who are listening or watching, if they're hearing background music and the music of people's voices, maybe the pitter patter of little feet or big feet, that's what's going on here. So, something we do for every guest is we just always want to hear someone's origin story. A lot of times it's grants, right? Because it's fundraising, HayDay. But how, I'm guessing you didn't grow up thinking, I am going to be like the best executive coach and trainer in the world when you were like 5. I mean, maybe you said nurse, astronaut, executive trainer, but maybe you didn't. So either way, we'd love to hear what drew you to this kind of specialization and what keeps you doing it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for having me, and congratulations on 7 seasons of
7
the
seasons.
podcast. I've been listening
This will be
since we
season
met.
8.
Oh, this is going to be season 8.
When it comes
2025.
out.
You were
Yeah.
going to be in season 8.
Oh,
You
that's
are
my
in
lucky
season 8.
number.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, 8 days a week is my company tagline.
that's right.
Thus implying that I
love
don't
it.
have work-life balance, but sometimes I do.
That's okay. There's no
Because
judgment
it's
here.
addictive. This work is addictive.
Yes.
Wow.
I started thinking about it, I think, nursery school or kindergarten, but not knowing I was thinking about it. The
Okay.
Teachers were telling my parents that I had opinions about how to handle some of the difficult students in class.
Are you serious?
And that
What?
little shy me, really, I was super shy, but I would offer some opinions. I loved science fairs. I was starting to enjoy teaching judges at science fairs in 1st grade and went through Catholic schools. By 8th grade, they had us all praying for vocations. So they wanted us to hope to be nuns and priests. And I prayed hard that I might be selected to be a nun because it looked great to me. Black dresses. You don't have to do your hair. They're the best teachers in the school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now then I liked boys. Like 2 years later, I started really
You were-
liking boys and that. So
Okay,
that went down the drain.
Rethinking,
Wah, wah.
Rethinking, but educator for sure. And then I got to Purdue
Well-
University in West Lafayette when I was 17 and got the luck of the draw, an academic counselor who was helpful to me when I said, I don't know whether to declare business or psychology. What do I do? And he said, have you heard of industrial organizational psychology, the study of human behavior at work? And I was like, ding, 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 ding. That's what I'm supposed to do. So I'd say at 17, it was pretty solid.
Well, thank you
That's
for being the
amazing.
outlier. We've only had a few. You're
Yes,
one of them. I can
one
think
of
of
2 or
one other
3.
person
Yeah.
who's
But
like, I
also,
just knew when I was
what-
17 what I wanted.
What a great advisor who talked
Yeah.
you through that and didn't just say, yeah, pick one, whatever.
Or double major. Or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, I was blessed. And since then,
Wow.
I've been loving traveling all around the U.S. to do training and coaching in every industry and government, academia, because our needs are pretty similar. Whether you
Wow.
volunteer, or you get paid to work, or if you don't become masterful at your communication, you don't reach your potential. So I like to, not that I'm perfect, right? But I like to study my own weaknesses and work on myself and help others work on themselves.
Wow.
That's lovely.
Nice.
I
Yeah,
know.
that's amazing.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned several things. Your clients really do range from nonprofits to universities, hospital systems, cold storage companies. Hello.
I may have been on your website and I'm crawling around. So
Good,
just
Yes,
saying,
yes.
just
Thank
saying.
goodness
Yes.
we've got it updated.
Yeah.
Good.
Sheriff's Department, which I worked in local government for a long time. I've worked with police officers. God bless them. They're fun to work with, aren't they?
They really are. They'll straight talk. I enjoy that. I
Yes.
do feel at home as far as my directness goes.
Yes.
It's welcome.
You know where you stand, even if you don't like where you stand. You do know where you stand.
Mhm.
I mean,
True story.
true.
Yeah. But no matter who you're working with, what commonalities do people working at these very different organizations share when it comes with their challenges with communications?
Couple things there. I think we would all benefit from getting to know our own personalities more deeply and
Mhm.
understanding what makes us tick as far as are we more expressive or amiable or analytical or more of a driver. And those are the four main human social styles, personalities. And then once you figure that out, you can start to take a scientific, can I cuss on this podcast? Wild ass guess.
Yeah.
You can take a scientific wild ass guess at what the person you're dealing with might be bringing to the table. And perhaps you're even savvy enough and you're using emotional intelligence. You can sort of shift your MO a bit
Yeah.
and communicate in a way that's best received by them while you
Yeah.
are still true to yourself. So no matter who we've worked with in the past 25 years, personality counts. Getting acquainted with our biases is super
Mhm.
helpful. And it's hard to do. It's hard to look at maybe what your parents or grandparents or step-parents or coaches or teachers taught you that might not be true about other humans, but it's good to take a look at how quickly we make decisions and judgments and try to slow our roll there. I think everybody could use praise more effectively. I have a little 4-step recipe folks can find on the website under Coach's Corner at gladieuxconsulting.com. We do a
Mhm.
lot of honest back and forth with our readers and our coaching clients and training participants, and they'll send me a tough communication question and I write back in 3 paragraphs or so or less.
Nice.
So I want people to check out that praise recipe because we could all be doing more of it. Also, presentation skills could improve across the board. Business writing can improve. Conflict management and negotiation can improve. Change management, stress management. That's the stuff that my team teaches. And, I'm joyful about it. I love it because if we have better communication skills in the workplace or wherever we volunteer, we experience more joy and success. And it spreads.
Yeah.
And others watch us. Even though we don't think about this, others are always watching and sort of noting how we move through the world. And sometimes we might inspire someone.
Yeah.
Especially if we're saying, like, I'm working on that about myself.
Yep.
I love hearing people with power talk about how they could improve. It just makes me feel included.
They're being more vulnerable instead of I know it all and everything's fine and everything's under control. Like that dog, that meme where the dog is sitting in the dining room and it's on fire and he's like, everything is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't just give us
Understand that
any.
feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's right. We just recently started a Patreon to go with our podcast. And when we were trying to figure out the lineup of like additional offerings, one of the things we came up with was we've got a monthly mistakes were made where one of us is getting on the hot seat going, yeah, so I did this thing.
And here's what happened.
Here's what happened. I'm still a great grant professional, but I missed a deadline or I messed up a report or what we have, we feel
There's
like
so
we've
many
got
to
content
choose
for days. We've got content for days.
For days there.
Yes.
It's
Well,
not
that's very
something that
real
people
of you.
talk. It's not
It's
something that
not,
people talk
because
about.
people are afraid if we admit this, then no one's ever going to hire us. But the reality is, we're all human and we all make mistakes. And it makes me feel better when someone emails me and says, "Oh my gosh, I messed up this," and I'm like, "So you mess up? You're human." That makes me feel more human because I do it all the time.
And let's fix it.
Yeah,
I would like to add a little warning to that.
go for it.
Thousands of people coached in the last couple decades. Women are more likely than men to point out their errors, shortcomings, and mistakes to the point sometimes, and some men as well, to the point sometimes where it can damage credibility.
I can
So
see that,
tomorrow
too.
when I do this keynote, what I will want to be saying as I'm mic'd up and I begin, I would really love to be able to say, gosh, I'm really nervous, but I'm not going to say,
No.
Yes.
gosh, I'm really nervous. That's
Yeah.
an example of vulnerability that nobody needs to
No,
hear.
you have to pick and choose.
Yes.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah,
Just want to make that
absolutely.
point.
No, that's a
And
very
then
good
this
point.
is the art and science of communication. I feel like we're walking a tightrope all the time, and we're trying to be direct, and we're trying to be diplomatic, and
Yeah.
we're trying to be vulnerable, and we're trying to be strong, and
Yeah.
we have to practice.
Yeah.
And that's the way to do it, baby steps.
Absolutely.
Very true.
So we both got copies of your book, Communicate with Courage, and I went on your website and I found the workbook too. So
Super.
we're just
Little companion guide.
just a little
We're like a
guide.
companion.
And I'm looking at, so I'm going to have to look down because I want to make sure I'm getting these references right. So
Sure.
here we go.
Okay.
So there, you talk about many things, but there are 4 communication challenges, right? And I wanted to take us to hidden challenge number 2, defining to be right. And I was like, oh, Michelle, hi, what are you doing in my head? To me, it just resonated because it was all about polarization, which is no matter who you are, where you are, what side of the bed you get up on, it's just rampant here in the United States. For my friend who thinks she might sometimes get stuck in the I am right and you are wrong, and that is it. This friend, we'll call her Slim K's of Judah.
Okay. That's weird. Great.
So if you were thinking, hey, I might kind of be stuck in this sort of I'm right, defining to be right sort of thing, what are some ways to gently look at yourself and recognize, or there's maybe a couple, 2 or 3 ways we could help this friend, help Slim in her journey?
And maybe some of our viewers and listeners are experiencing this as well. But
Or they may have friends.
They might have friends or family members.
Friends and family.
If people avoid disagreeing with you, or they don't freely offer feedback or ideas, it might be because you're difficult to approach or difficult to disagree with. And I've heard this, and in the book, I actually did a paragraph or 2 sort of apologizing to guys I've dated that on their way out the door, they were saying like, well, I'm out because you're never wrong. And I'm saying, that's not true. Like literally, I remember doors shutting, and I'm still trying to define to be right, compete, and win. Every decade I live, I get better at this. I want my team, I want my significant other, I want my family to feel like they can tell me what they see and say it straight, and I can take it. So it really is, it's an example of your ego needing to maybe stand down. So people might be afraid in a way to come up to you and tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Another possible indicator that you're defining to be right could be if your self-esteem seems very tied to winning or to being the one who gets the upper hand, last word, the apology, or it's hard to make an apology. And I want, as I sit here, I think, is lightning going to strike me down? Because I'm very much describing my own weaknesses, right? Maybe those who need to work on it write about it. A third way
fair.
A third way is people close down when interacting with you. That's always made me really angry. I'm down for a debate. I grew up in a family that was about debate and the pursuit of academic excellence and learning. And so I sort of thought the rest of the world would be that way. But when I got out of my family of origin, I realized this shuts people down. So I'm learning to scoop in a little more diplomacy, some amiable traits that aren't necessarily present naturally in my personality.
Right.
And it's neat to learn. As we learn about our personality, we can start to say, oh, I know someone like that. I'm going to watch how she or he or they move through the world. That's something I wouldn't have done. And then I begin to act as if sometimes I am a friend who's better in a situation than I would be.
Yeah.
And I try to embody them and learn by choosing role models. So those are a couple ways we know that we're defining to be right.
Yeah.
I think that's such an important consideration, though, to be open, to make sure that people understand that you're open to even talking about something, because that would a telltale sign if people never come to you. Although people do come to me and share their thoughts and feelings a lot.
Yeah.
But there's always room for improvement.
That there is.
We can test our assumptions and change our old belief systems, even about ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's maybe where it's at to become a great communicator. I also think about using power ethically. So when I'm coaching a professional, I tend to ask them to rate their use of 4 different types of power, and then we'll choose one to build in that few months that we're working together.
Okay.
And that's an empowering way for folks to get a baseline idea of how do I use power? What types of power am I using? And then they can choose one that interests them, and it changes their personal and professional life at the same time.
Nice.
Very cool. Well, talking about power, given the competitive nature of the grant profession, particularly when it comes to grant seeking, right?
It is set up to be competitive. We don't like it. And by I mean us. I mean lots of people.
Yes.
I'm not saying the royal we.
Yes. But
Or it could be.
Yeah. But most professionals are pushed towards perfectionism in every aspect. Like you don't want to come out of place. You don't want a word.
Girl, I've seen job descriptions where it was like, you can't make any mistakes. We want 100% perfection in our grant writers. And it was a job description, this is a long time ago, that I almost like responded to, because I was like, oh yeah, I can totally see why that would be important. It was a great organization. And now I'm looking back and I'm like, Holy,
Nobody
What
can do
the-
that. Yeah.
nobody can do that.
Nope. Well, and so you talk about this.
There's part of me that's going, yes, you can, and you should try.
Yeah.
So I try.
Oh no, we do.
Yes.
We do. I mean, it's
Nothing
built
like
in.
nothing like a misspelled word when the newsletter goes out to a couple thousand people, right?
Oh,
It's just the worst
Or
feeling.
how about a $4 million grant proposal about public health and you take out a consonant? Now, what kind of health are you talking about?
This bifold that you'll receive from me tomorrow went to print and showed up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, with one word incorrect on the cover. And so the entire batch of 1,000 plus was recycled. My decision. We ate the cost and we redid.
Yeah.
And here was the deal. We claimed that this was a retreat when it's Grant Summit, not a retreat. And I thought about that because it was a substantial cost, but I was willing to redo. But I also thought, how long am I going to feel bad about this? I was the last editor from my team. It was on me, my mistake.
Yeah.
Not too long. I think I let it go after about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
yeah. That's good.
Anyway,
But you also, your business didn't no one fired you for making
that's
one
right.
mistake.
That's true.
I think
Yes.
that's what I was getting at with that job description. I'm like, oh yes, it's very important work. I'm like, oh my God, what if I just have a bad, what if I miss something?
Yeah.
And I will.
Well, we're human. Yes.
Yeah.
We're gonna make mistakes.
So yeah, it's like that was, so anyway, that's sort of the way this industry is set up. I
It
think.
is. So, in line with that, in chapter 8 of your book, Communicate with Courage, you write about the risk of unachievably high standards. So, would you explain both the professional and personal risk of those kinds of standards and the difference
We
between
just
this
talked about
concept and settling for good enough?
Okay.
Okay, so good enough.
Okay, professional risks of being perfectionistic. Others might see you as a wet blanket on their team.
We don't know anything
No,
about
don't know
it.
anything about that.
We just
you might
reeling.
be quick to point out the one thing that wasn't right when there were 20 things that were good, and that's a hard team member to interact with.
I love you.
I know. I'm like, that font is not the
That's
same
a
size as the
team.
other stuff in this handout. That's me.
Burnout is a real risk because if we hold ourselves to those extremely
Yeah.
high and unachievable standards all the
Mhm.
time, it really denigrates our soul, mind, body. And for this reason, I ask folks to create, often coaching clients will be asked to create a self-care or rewards list. And I ask them on one page to document things that restore them body, mind, or soul. Could be 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 5 hours, or 5-day vacation. Could cost nothing, could cost a little something. Might be something we do together, might be alone time. Just remember what brings you joy and helps you forget that you are a grant writer or that you are a whatever your profession is, because you're so much more than your profession.
Yeah.
And we have to know what those things are that help us unplug from our work. And that helps us keep our standards reasonable because we have other ways of defining our worth outside of the job.
Yeah.
Not that I'm great at this. I mean, I just teach it
Yeah.
and coach about
Is
it.
it like, what is the adage? It's like you teach the thing that you
Yes.
want to know.
That's right.
Uh-huh.
Sure.
Very true.
I'm also wondering too, like generationally, there we go. Generationally speaking, I'm going to be speaking in generalities and I'm sorry. I was kind of inculcated that my job was my self-worth. And I don't think I am alone for people who are like the oldest living Gen Xers on the planet. I feel like that's something that was in us. I'm getting a feeling from like younger generations, like maybe Gen Z, where they're not. They're maybe
You have a wider
not getting
definition
that. They're
of
a
self
lot.
and success. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm just wondering if you have seen that, or are you mainly coaching and working with people who might be millennials, Gen X? I'm just trying to
Sure,
see, and I
right.
know that those. I also want to say that those are kind of artificial
They really
barriers
are.
of age created maybe by marketing consultants, but be that as it may, I'm just thinking about generationally. It seems like maybe there's a better understanding of a life versus job is life.
I think that younger generations generally want to be tied to purpose.
Yeah.
And so we talk a lot about our unique mission.
Yeah.
And they are interested in, many of them are interested in leaving the planet better than they found it. Not that older generations can't be, but there was a certain loyalty to employer, and the more you worked, the better. And
It was that was, and particularly I think in nonprofit where it's like you're in it for the passion, you're not in it for the money, do more with less. It was a very, I took it all the way in. Yeah.
okay. And so the three of us probably recognize that as unsustainable.
Yes, I would.
Long-term?
Yes, I would say yes, Amanda.
Yes.
Yes, we say yes.
So, okay, we say yes. Then we can remember to invest in different parts of our personalities and our beings that don't have to do with our grant writing work.
Yeah.
Well, also that's why we started this podcast so many
It's
years
true.
ago. Is we were sitting at lunch one day. We catch up every couple of months,
Yeah.
and we were both kind of like, we've been doing this a while, starting to get burned out, but we do love what we do, but does it have to be like this for another 20 years? And we were looking for something
That
This is
answer was
fresh.
no.
Yeah,
That was
you
no.
injected it with some fresh,
Yeah,
new,
it
creative,
was nice.
innovative communication.
Yeah.
She did. I was just smart enough to say yes.
That's good. Good.
I was like, yeah, that
It's
sounds
fun
great.
not to do these kinds of things alone, though, isn't it?
Listen, I'm all
Never-
about doing
never-
things with
You're an
people.
extrovert. You get
Absolutely.
your energy from being around
I'm an
others.
introvert, and I'm all about co-creating.
Yes.
There you go.
So
Yes.
Ambivert, maybe. Ambivert. A little bit introversion, a little bit
my
extroversion.
vert, just vert.
Just
How
hook
it
it
will vert on the vert.
All the things.
Just not pervert.
No, not at all.
Just saying that for just if people
getting
are
it out
listening,
there.
get that
Woo.
vert. That's
Out
not
there.
where I'm going. Just say it. So, a complete change away from verts and anything else that's completely inappropriate that I may have just said, that I stand behind.
It's your podcast.
It's our podcast. It's our podcast.
It is.
So we also have talked to over the years, because that's right, we'll be kicking off season 8 in January. So from 2018 to now, we've had lots of folks coming on who are building their business or have successful businesses, a lot in grants, but not everyone, certainly. And I'm always curious if you could go back in time and sort of think about the kind of advice or sort of that, what I wish I knew when I was
Back
starting
then.
my business, and share some of that with folks too. So I know we're going a little bit away from communication,
Mhm.
but
But we're never too far away from
I was
no,
gonna say,
communication.
because it's probably all
communicating advice to the rest of us.
I have a tough time with that because I think I knew what I was in for. I knew that there would be age bias. I knew there would be gender bias. I knew that people would have a tough time sometimes looking at their companies or themselves. I just brought enough enthusiasm and passion and background to it that I think I was able to bring folks around to seeing that investing in things like coaching and training and strategic planning is important if you want to be best in class.
Mhm.
So how about I tell you something I'm glad I did do before I launched the business? Could I go that way?
go that
Absolutely.
way.
Really glad I worked as a corporate human resources and training director for
Okay.
a bunch of different male dominated industries, warehousing,
Oh.
construction, properties. And I never was fazed by gender, age, skin color, etc. I think I was just treated as if I were equally valuable to two big brothers, 7 and 14 years older than me. And so that kind of, it got in my head that like,
Yeah.
they're just regular people.
Uh-huh.
Even if I'm the only one of that type of people in a room, we're all
Mhm.
just regular people.
Nice.
And secondly, the academic experience. I'm really glad that I spent about 20 years teaching at 3 different universities in Indiana. That was a good move. And I did that as soon as I had the Master's of
Right.
Science degree because that was the ceiling.
level,
Yes,
yeah.
the level. You had to have that Master's and then you could begin to apply to teach. And
Nice.
so that was fun too. And I started really, really young at 23 with my first international business class, which was a 400 level business class, and just studied. It was really
Yeah.
studied so that I could teach what I was learning.
Uh-huh.
Nice.
So it was fun.
So it kind of sounds too like it. Before you were launching this business, you had a lot of experience and insight to draw upon, and that gave you the confidence. And maybe that's not a thing that you wish you had known. That was a thing that you were glad to have had.
I'm glad I put in that work because
Yeah.
that was working, 8 to 5 HR director, and then grab some fast food and go to university and teach 5:30 to 9:30 and try to keep those working adults excited and interested about learning when I myself was also tired, etc. But it was
y'all were
always
all
worth it. I
tired.
always taught a tough class and people were always really proud if they got out of that class with an A or B, but I also tried to make myself available at every turn if there was something that was confusing. Again, back to being
Yeah.
open to feedback.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one good thing about being a corporate trainer or a traveling trainer or a professor is you get feedback constantly because you're always handing out evaluations.
Yeah.
And the universities will do that for you as well, and then present you with the aggregated data to let you know how you stack up
Yep.
next to other educators. And so I've read tens and thousands of evaluations. I don't use all of the constructive criticism, but I take it all seriously.
Sure.
Well, and I think there's not only that, but because we get evaluations, like if we teach a workshop at this Grant Summit, we'll get an evaluation and feedback. And it took me a while to overcome there's most likely always going to be some negative feedback.
This
But
isn't what I thought you were going to teach.
yes, and learning the
Or
difference.
the room was too cold.
Yeah.
Because we
that's easy to
do.
overlook
Yes,
I know.
as the presenter.
yes,
Yeah,
it is.
'cause
Well,
we,
not overlook, but to put that
Yeah.
constructive
Yeah, it's
criticism
like-
in the place where it goes,
it's like
which
Exactly.
is the
thanks.
team.
Exactly.
Thanks.
But it took me some time to realize the difference between that I have no control. Like this wasn't what I thought. I don't have a lot of control over that.
That's You have to write a good intro, write a
Exactly.
good promo blurb, so that
Exactly.
they sign
Yeah.
up for what they're getting.
Exactly.
And if you've done that,
Versus somebody going, "Hey, this was a real problem," and me going, "You know what? They're right. It actually was." And learning and trying to see those as that actually helps me moving forward, rather than going, "Well, I guess I'm never teaching this again because I
Yeah,
suck,"
and just shutting down.
which can be very easy for me to do sometimes. So I had to learn to get over that.
that surprises me
So-
because both of your lights shine very bright as communicators.
Well, thanks. Well,
So it's been a twisty road, probably.
I mean, again,
I think
talking
our
about.
mileage may vary. I think it just depends.
Well, it does, and it's. I always want to be so helpful to people that I feel disappointed when I'm not that way, and I also think, 22-year-old me looks at things very different than now 40 old me. So
Yeah, you know what? And let's speak to our listeners and viewers as participants in meetings, in trainings, and in conferences. Please show up to your meetings and sessions and think about how you can add to the dynamic of the conversation and be a brave communicator. Help someone else explore their point.
yeah,
Answer a question if the presenter isn't sure about which way to go with it. Ask a question if the presenter is seeking questions and not
Yes.
getting any yet. One of the things that continues to mystify me is, let's say I'm doing a 4-hour excelling as a leader seminar, and I might pause 50 times during that 4 hours to invite comments, questions. What could I explain better?
Uh-huh.
Does anyone have any thoughts? Do you have an example? What about
Yeah.
personal life? And
Yeah.
I'm up there fishing, literally
Uh-huh.
throwing my lure in the water.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes the crowd's not into it. The learners aren't feeling
Fair.
very participative.
They're
and then on the evaluation, how could this training be better? More participation. I absolutely agree.
You're like,
Who wrote that? Did you speak? So please speak up.
trying.
Please speak up. And,
Yes.
and we can think about that. Sometimes my coaching clients and I will talk about, maybe they're very verbose and very articulate. I'll ask them, okay, for the next couple of weeks, for your most important communications, I want you to think, what percentage of the communicating will you be doing? What percentage of the speaking will you be doing? And it's interesting. How much should you be doing when you meet with your employee for a performance review?
Yeah.
Maybe 50%? When you're interviewing someone, pick a number. Maybe
Yeah.
30%, and they're talking 70% of the time.
Yeah.
When you get home, and it's time for everyone to talk about their day. Are you monopolizing the conversation? Are you making everyone else do the heavy lifting? Or are you a participant at a level that's
nice.
appropriate and helpful? So that's
Yeah.
fun too. We can add metrics to communication in small ways, and I call these pro moves. Pro moves are small things that we can do that the average bear just walks on by and doesn't quite notice.
Yeah.
But the person who's thinking strategically and wants to embrace the art and science of communication, they engage in the small things and they make all the difference, just like everything
Sure.
else in life.
It's true.
It's the small stuff that matters most. And it's listening, not just speaking.
Yeah.
But most of us are better at one or the other.
It's true.
I'm better at speaking.
I think we got a lot of. We were both before and during the early days of the podcast.
Yeah.
We were both trainers for a big training company in grants and grant management, and went all over the country and spoke to all kinds of adult learners. And a lot of times they were voluntold to show up and learn, and they could be from the sheriff's offices and police departments and firefighters to hospitals to nonprofits. And I think I found myself a lot of times, like, even physically, if I was teaching in person, like physically engaging or trying to encourage people who hadn't spoken to speak by maybe standing next to the person who was like sharing their whole life when maybe we didn't have time to hear the whole life, maybe just a question. But I mean, it was a real education
Yeah.
in flexing communication style and speaking, but also listening, I guess. So yeah, I'm just agreeing. It's just making me think about how we had a special education in that, I guess.
And it's really your responsibility
Yeah.
when you are the presenter or the facilitator or the trainer
Yeah.
to manage all of the communication in the room.
Yes.
So we need to bring our
Yes.
courage when it is our turn to speak. And I think people benefit from raising their hand to volunteer to facilitate a little more often. Even if the people around you will be surprised and they're not used to that side of you, that's okay. Let them know this is my goal for 2025
Yeah.
or whatever year we're in, what you're listening to
Yeah.
this. This is my
Uh-huh.
goal. And that way, when we announce our goal to our colleagues, they begin to see us differently and our families.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's important because, we like to put people in a box. Like,
Yeah.
I got Amanda figured out. So
Yeah.
that's how she's going to behave. Oh, hold up. She might be growing.
Yeah.
So I ask my coaching clients,
Surprise.
announce your goals to your families and to your teams so they can watch for those baby step changes. And in my book, Communicate with Courage, at the end of every chapter, there's one pro move to try and one exercise that anyone could try same day. I
Mhm.
kept the book short. It's 140
Yeah,
pages.
it's a
That
fast
was
read.
hard for me because I have a lot to say about communication, but I figured everyone is busy.
Yes.
So we wanted a book that people could throw it in their bag, and then when they're in line somewhere or they're on a flight or they
Yeah.
have waiting time at the soccer game, pull it out, dip in, try a little something.
Yeah.
And let people know you're trying because there's no sense in keeping that your light hid.
I just never thought about that too. It's like also maybe helping yourself to be like it's an accountability thing too if you're letting people know, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Well said. So when I say to my family, I'm really working on listening when we disagree and then I don't do it, I hear about it. When I tell my team I'm working on not interrupting, I get that feedback pretty quickly. You said your goal was, and it does hold you accountable.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of put the ego aside
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
and be able to laugh at yourself. Love yourself.
Yeah.
And it's, a lot of these behaviors we pick up as communicators, we pick them up young from our nuclear families, from
Oh,
the
yeah.
tall people when we were small that were
Yeah.
around us. And then we tend to replicate what we saw, for better or
Mhm.
worse, or we go completely the other direction. I work with people who can't stay in a conflict for more than 10 seconds because conflict was rampant in their home.
Yeah.
Or because conflict was rampant in their home, they've got their gloves,
ready
they've
to
got their
go.
fists up and they're ready to jump in
go.
the ring.
Mhm.
It's very interesting to take a look at, and maybe that's my psych degree talking, but it's interesting to take a look at what you saw in your formative years. And then what the beauty is, we can choose what to keep and what to kick to the curb.
Yeah.
And that it's a constant process of, what's the word here? Cleaning out your closet,
Yeah.
Mhm.
sort of.
Beautiful. Well, one of the things we'd like to ask about is you have you said not really a foundation, but you've got this work you're doing called GC Gives Back.
Yes.
And so why is philanthropy a focus area for you? And what is it you do with GC Gives Back?
Well, I'm an extrovert, and my company is all about getting to know people and teams all around the United States. So we get to know a lot of great nonprofits that are
Yeah.
doing great work, and then they will reach out, and we do everything we can to try to do something to help, right?
Uh-huh.
There is a Chinese proverb that goes like this: a little fragrance always clings to the hand that gives the roses. And I have found that generosity is just one of the natural highs of life. So, we're not in a position to underwrite millions of dollars worth of nonprofit funding, but
Yeah.
we always try to give back. It just feels good.
That's
It
lovely.
does.
And so it's for others, but just like when you give your effort to pro moves as a communicator, you can't help but win when you're working on how you communicate.
true.
Oh, yeah.
It's a win-win.
That's
So
beautiful.
it's an
I love
easy
that.
choice, right?
Uh-huh. Well, but not for everybody. So
Science
I
is
love
also on your side, as you know.
yeah.
I mean, no,
It's called the
gratitude.
virtuous circle.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Companies that give do better.
Yeah. And people
Absolutely.
too. Lovely. I'm still thinking about the roses and the scented hands. Thank you so much. So we've talked about a lot of different things, and I'm sure we've piqued a lot of interest. So if people want to find out more, people who couldn't come to the Grant Summit and couldn't hear your keynote, what's the best way for them to connect to you and your work?
Well, we have spent a lot of time loading our website with free professional development tools and
True.
articles.
We love it.
Downloadable, e-fillable, easy to understand. Then you look at your work and think, oh, maybe that is my unique mission at this age in my life. So please check that out. Enjoy those resources. And I write a quarterly newsletter
Mhm.
that I put a lot of heart in. It always feels like maybe birthing something.
Yes.
I don't
Oh, wow.
know. I don't know. And I try to make it uplifting, fun. There's always the free resources attached to that newsletter. It's called
Mhm.
Breakdown because I'm a Tom Petty fanatic.
Nice.
And yeah, go ahead and give it to me. So they can sign up on the website gladioconsulting.com. And if anyone wants to know more about training or workshops, strategic planning, or one-on-one coaching, they can call me at 260-450-4202. It's
And
my
we'll
cell
make-
phone number.
We'll make sure to put that
It
in
was
the.
so nice.
Yeah, we'll have that in the show
Yeah.
notes.
Right,
so
we're on
that's how
Facebook, Insta,
Yeah,
you know, but
all
that's
the
always
usuals.
that's always exciting to me. I listen to a lot of podcasts while I garden, while I clean, while I walk,
Sure.
while I bike, and I'm forever taking a screenshot, jotting something down, thinking I want to know more about that person's work, and that's the result of a well done podcast. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for all the time you
Oh.
put into this,
Oh,
and the
thank
heart you
you.
put into it.
Well, we love it. So
Yeah,
that
yeah,
helps.
yeah. I can tell.
Yes. Well, we
Wonderful.
appreciate that.
Sure.
Please don't take notes while you're riding the bike, though. I'm
No, I
worried.
wouldn't. No, and I'm more likely to walk. Than
Okay,
ride a
fair.
bike.
That's fair. That's fair. Sounds like I was like
low
whoa,
impact.
Whoa.
Low
Good
impact.
call. Good call.
But thank you so much.
Sure,
It's been
sure.
a
Yes,
pleasure.
you're great.
I want to invite you both to give me feedback on the keynote. Let me know what could be better. Let me
Will
know what you liked if you
do.
would like.
Thank you. We will take you up on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Remember, though, research shows that the best ratio for humans to really lock into what you're saying if you have feedback, use a ratio of 3 pieces of praise to 1 piece of criticism
Oh, that's
at
different.
home or work. Over time, it doesn't have to be I'm sitting
All at
down with
once.
my
Yeah.
my child or my significant other or my coworker and making sure it's always 3 to 1, but over time. And
Yeah.
I've thought about myself a lot with that ratio. I think I'm 1 to 1 on a good month.
I
A good
always
week.
thought it was like a sandwich where it was 2 to 1, but you know what? 3 to 1's not going to hurt.
The sandwich, so
No.
confusing. So
Yeah.
you come in,
Yeah.
you know,
It's like
the
good,
employees
bad,
don't-
good,
right,
bad,
That's
good,
right.
bad.
That's right. Very confusing. Just blend diplomacy with assertiveness when you're giving feedback, and you'll do well. But anyway, nice to meet you both.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks for joining us.
You bet.
Thanks again to today's sponsor, Kim Joyce and Associates. If you want to learn more about their many service offerings, visit kimjoyceandassociates.com. That's KIMJOYCE and associates.com.
So listen, I always learn so much from each and every interview that we do. I hope you did too. And these communication strategies, or even just a discussion about the importance of communication, is essential.
Absolutely. We're so honored that you chose to spend time with us today as we kicked off season 8 of the podcast. We hope you'll join us again in 2 weeks, where we are diving into the exciting world of federal appropriations with expert Tanya Brown Kinzel. We'll see y'all then.
Bye.